Hello, everyone, and welcome to another webinar from Exadel. This time we'll be talking about Tiggzi, but specifically about the use of Tiggzi with a particular service that provides back-end services for people who are building mobile apps. That's one of the most great features about Tiggzi is its ability to help people who are developing mobile apps to actually take advantages of all the, to incorporate different REST services that are out there in the cloud into their applications. Here is an example where you're actually taking advantage of a web service to create the back-end services that you'll connect to in your mobile app. So that's kind of a mouthful. Max Katz will explain everything. Just a few housekeeping details. This webinar is being recorded. There will be an archive that will be available to everyone who registers in about a day or so at the most. Everyone will receive an email who registers with the details about how to access the archives of this webinar. Now, the basic way that this is set up is we'll do a few introductory slides, and then Max will go into actually showing you how to build everything on the screen. And at the end, there'll be a question and answer period where you can actually post questions at any time. If you look in the lower right-hand corner, there should be a questions panel that you can use. You can also use that if you're having trouble or something like that with the sound quality. It's sort of like a bulletin board too. So we'll leave lots of time for questions at the end, and we really appreciate everyone coming to visit us here and take time out of your busy days to hear us talk about Tiggzi. So okay, so the two people here, Max is the main person. He'll be leading you through most of this webinar. He's involved in developer relations for Tiggzi. There's the contact information up there for him. My name is Charlie Towns. I work in the marketing department as a sort of jack of all trades here. And one of the things I do is I help out Max with running these webinars. And there's my contact info. I'd be more of a contact for things like how do I get the archive or something like that. And Max is your contact for questions about Tiggzi that you might not have thought of at the webinar. Okay, here's a little bit about what's behind Tiggzi. Tiggzi is actually produced by Exadel, and we're a global software engineering company. We do services. We do mostly professional services, and what happens is sometimes we keep doing the same thing. Like we did a lot of work in mobile development for different clients, and then we thought, well, maybe we can spin this expertise off as a separate product, and that's pretty much how Tiggzi was born. It kind of originated as us doing the same thing over and over again and figuring why not create a general purpose tool and build a community around that. We've been around for a while. As we've been since 1998. We're over here in the San Francisco Bay Area. Actually, we're in Concord, California, to be precise. But we also have a very big global presence and a lot of employees. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Max Katz, and he'll tell you what he's going to tell you, and then he's going to tell you it, and then we're going to take questions. So thank you for coming to this webinar.
Thank you, Charlie, and welcome everyone. So the plan is pretty simple for today. We're actually I'm going to show you how to build an app and connect to Parse mobile backend. So that's going to take most of the time. But first, let me really quickly tell you what Tiggzi mobile app builder is. So it's a cloud-based builder for creating HTML5 and PhoneGap mobile apps. And I mean, the real value is that it's incredibly easy, right, to build mobile apps. And you'll see when I build the app that I can build a CRUD, a real app, in just 15, 20 minutes, which is I think is really incredible. So there are a couple of other things that you should know about Tiggzi. So first is that you build the UI with jQuery Mobile HTML5 and JavaScript. Next, you can connect to any REST service out there. So any cloud service accessible on the internet, you can connect, right? So that's a very unique feature, and that's how we're going to connect to Parse, because Parse, any object or class you create is automatically exposed via REST. So again, any REST service out there, you can consume or use in your mobile app. You can also, of course, create events and invoke various REST API. You can write custom JavaScript, and of course, you can also use PhoneGap API, which is a framework that gives you access to native device features. Next, you can also test the app instantly, and that's also very important. You build the app, there is a big test button. You click, and you can test the app instantly in your browser. You can also test the app, of course, on your device. That's where it's going to be running. So that's also very easily done. Now, if you use a PhoneGap and you use any native device features, then testing in the browser is not possible anymore. Again, if you use the camera, for example, there is no camera in the browser. So we have a native app for iOS and also Android where you can you get a list of all your apps, and you just tap an app, and it will download the app on your phone, and it will be a native app, actually, or hybrid app you're testing. So basically, it comes down to it makes it very easy to test hybrid or PhoneGap apps. Once you're done with the app, you can export the app, and there are a couple of options. You can do just HTML5, which is web resources. You can do Android, and for example, the very last option, release binary, that file is ready for the apps market. iOS right now is the source code, Xcode project, but we are working on actually doing a binary build for you as well. So that's coming up. But again, you have a lot of options. You can do just pure web. You can do or you can do a PhoneGap. Right? And again, just to come back again to PhoneGap, again, it's a platform that gives you access to native API. So there are really two couple of ways to use it. So first, you can see on the palette there, so we have a number of components which are actually based on top of PhoneGap API. So you don't need to know the exact API. You can just drag and drop them and use them, right? But you can, of course, use the PhoneGap API directly as well. So there are a lot of places where you can write, JavaScript, and invoking PhoneGap API is basically just using JavaScript API. So whatever PhoneGap allows you to do, you can, of course, get it in the builder as well. So next there is also the social aspect. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with Google Docs, where you can invite other folks to read the document, edit the document. So there's very similar here, where you can share the app with other developers or co-workers or customers, and you can actually collaborate and build the app together. So again, you can also, for example, do in-app chatting. Next is you can also customize the UI. So you can build different themes, and we are also working on making it possible for you to create a jQuery mobile theme in their theming tool, and then actually import the CSS into the builder. So you also will be able to do that. All right. So this picture shows you sort of the platform or the whole stack. So at the top, you can see that's a cloud-based builder. But it's very important that the technology sort of behind the scenes or under the hood is just sort of the standard technologies out there. Okay, jQuery mobile, HTML5, JavaScript. And again, if you need to do a PhoneGap app, again, which is a hybrid app, you can use PhoneGap. So it's very important because they do get a lot of questions where people say, well, can I do this with JavaScript? Can I do this with JavaScript? So the answer is always yes. So Tiggzi is basically it's a cloud-based builder that's based on these technologies. So anything you can do with these technologies sort of by hand, you can do them in Tiggzi. And again, that's very important. And just as a general future direction, we're going to be adding more and more visual features to make it even easier to basically do anything you want. But at the same time, we're also going to be introducing more sort of source features where you can write HTML or you can write JavaScript. So kind of these two directions. And again, of course, the end result, the goal is to make it a very powerful cloud-based app builder. So, having said that, you build your app. It can be again HTML5 or mobile web, or it can be a phone app. But in many cases, you want to also connect to some service or server, right? And so, where do you get that? So, if you tried Tiggzi before, then you can connect to any REST service. So that REST service has to exist somewhere. So, for example, Twitter, or Facebook, or LinkedIn, or anything, SoundCloud, those services already exist. But what if you want to create your own service, your own backend? So the number of companies that do that, and one of them, which is very, very easy to use and it's incredibly elegant, is Parse or Parse.com. And they make it very easy to create your mobile backend. And again, all the services are instantly exposed via REST. So, you create a table or a class, what they call, and you can instantly use it. So it's very, very easy. All right? And I'm actually going to show you how to do that. So having said that, I'm going to open our Tiggzi builder, and I'm actually going to build an app for you, which you can connect to Parse, and we're going to, you guys will be able to test the app. All right, so first you can see there's a big create new app box here. I'm going to click start now. All right, and then I go with the app builder. I'm going to click go here. All right, and then this is where I can actually go choose mobile web. So this means this is just pure mobile web HTML5 or mobile app. So the difference is in the mobile app, you can actually get access to phone gap. So that project will include phone gap. If I go with the mobile web, then there's no phone gap. All right, but I mean, for this case, I'm going to go with the mobile web. But again, so you guys just aware what the difference is. All right, I'm going to go with a blank mobile web. And I'm going to call this. All right, this is the name for my app, and I'm going to click create. So it's going to take a few seconds here to load the builder. All right. Actually, I'm going to switch for now. As it's loading, I'm going to switch to Parse, and this is how the Parse looks. So this is my app, and there are a couple of tabs here, as you can see. So these are keys which I need to authenticate, so I know, so Parse know which service I'm calling. All right, and this is my data browser. So this is where actually I can create various classes or my backend objects. So I'm going to use, I already have a class here called Cool Things, and you can see that there's object ID here, and also created at and updated at. So these are default columns which are created by Parse, and they're automatically set each time we create an object or each time we update an object. So the only one I created is text, and I'll in a single one just to keep it simple. But of course you can create other columns as well. And again, just to give you an idea, if I want to create a new class, all I have to do something like this. All right, and I got a new class, and again, I can put sample data. But again, this is basically as easy as it can be. All right, so let's go back here. This is the one we're going to be using, and let's see. So this is the app builder. So you got a phone frame in the middle, and we got components. So to start, we're going to build the UI, and let's change the look and feel a little bit. The theme. We're actually going to go with gray here. This looks a little bit better. And we're going to make this to be black, and we can call this Cool Things app. All right? So something like this, and we can also hide the footer. So it looks like this. All right? Let's now build the UI a little bit. So the actual app that I'm going to build is going to be a simple CRUD app where you get a list of cool things or just basically words and or messages, and then will be able to add new messages, and then you will be able to delete the message. All right, but as the first step, we're going to just make sure we can display the list. So let's, I'm going to get a grid component, so drag and drop a grid component that has 2 columns by default, and this is useful for layout. I'm going to make the first column a little bit bigger, and now into the first column, I'm going to put a list component. All right, then once I have the list component, I'm going to head to properties. I'm actually going to reduce the number of items to just 1 because we're actually going to load the values from our service. And I'm also going to hide the numbers and make it round corners. I'm going to delete this label, and instead I'm going to put an actual label component. Okay, so this is going to be the message text. I'm also going to head to properties here, and I'm going to rename it to things text. Okay, this is a little bit easier, so it's easier for me to find the component later, but this is an optional step. So this is actually for at least the first phase of the UI. And what I can do, I can test this instantly, right? Again, in the browser or on the phone. So you can see there is a test button. I'm going to click the test button, and it's going to open, right? And this is how it looks. And so what I can do is I can make this app public, and you guys can actually test the app as well. So give me a sec here. I'm going to make this public. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this into the GoToWebinar chat window or message window so you guys can click on it. And then I'm going to come back and open this window so you guys can maybe scan the QR code or enter the URL. All right, so I put in the chat window, and I'm going to come back here. Again, if you would like, you can scan. You can scan the QR code if you have on your phone, or you can just enter the URL. So I'm going to wait for a few seconds here for someone to tell me they can see the app either on the phone or desktop browser.
Yeah, just type it into the question page.
Just say, yes, I can see it.
Okay.
All right, very good. So we've got one person who can see it. So I mean, that basically should mean that everyone should be able to see it as well. Again, it can be a desktop browser. Then in this case, you'll see a frame of a phone, or you can also open it on your device as well. All right, very good. So this is for the UI. So now let's now go and get our service. So to get a service, there is a services palette, all right, and there is a REST service. I'm going to drag and drop it. And I don't have a service yet, so I'm going to click Create New or Add New, all right? And it takes me to the services editor. I'm going to give it a name. So we're going to call this Get Things, all right? Now the service URL is basically pretty simple. Is that it is the class name. It has the parse.com host, and then basically this class name. But I want to type it. So what I'm actually going to do, I create a little cheat sheet for me here where I can just copy this. But this is how the service looks. I mean, it's pretty simple. All right, here, I'm going to show it to you again. So basically, this is the Parse, API parse.com, classes and actual class name. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. But again, so you don't make any mistakes to typing it. All right, so it's going to be a GET request, right? And the return type is JSON. So next, basically, every service has inputs and outputs, so we're going to go into the request parameters and define the inputs. And just to do a GET request, at least in our context, we need to specify 2 keys, two keys, yes, as header parameters, which will identify, this is actually the, so the person knows which class I'm actually invoking. And if you look here on the dashboard, I need the application ID and the REST API key, all right? So actually, I'm not going to enter, of course, the keys by hand, but I created them here. So this is the first one, xparse application ID. This is the header that Parse will be looking for. And so I'm just going to create it like this. And then This is the value. All right, and we have to make sure, don't forget to make it a header, and then the second one, here we go, and the actual key. All right, make it a header. So we're actually ready to actually test the service now, and there is a test connection, which is again sort of makes this to be not just a service editor, but kind of an API console where you can actually test the service and see what it what it returns, without actually running on the screen. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to click test connection. We can click test, right? And this is what we get, which is empty because we don't have any entries, all right? So we can close, and we can go here, and we can actually create some objects right here. So double click. So this is one, and then we can do one more. All right, so now we get 2 entries. Notice the object ID, and this is automatically set, so we don't need to worry about it. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to click test connection, test, and you can see that I actually get. So this is, again, incredibly easy. Sort of tells you, hey, this works. All right. Next step is to define the service output. And again, if you go to Parse, documentation, they'll kind of tell you everything, what's the format for invoking, what's the response. But I can see from here what the response is, right? But again, I don't want to type this by hand, so there is a feature where we can automatically create the response, right? And then close, and this is the result, right? So we got that. So we got output, we got input, and of course the actual service. All right, good. So let's click save. Let's click close here. And so this is the service instance on the screen. Let's just rename this so it's a little bit easier. So get things. All right, so we got that. And what we need to do now is we need to map. So when we invoke the service, there's nothing for us to provide as input. So the 2 header parameters are going to be sent by default. They're defined in the service. When we service returns, we would like to map the item to this list. Right, so I'm going to click change here, and this is actually our new visual data mapper. So you can see this is the request parameters, this is the service, this is the header, and so you can see they're set. So there is nothing for me to take from the UI and pass it to the service in this particular case. So we're going to go to response mapping, and we can see this is the response, and you can see this is the actual page, right? So this is the property things text. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the result first and map it to the grid. So this way we get it to iterate over the result. And then finally the text property, I'm going to take it, all right, and map it like this. All right. So you can see that it's pretty simple. Now, the reason we switched, again, if you used Tiggzi before, then we had a different mapper a little bit. We're going to continue to improve this one. This allows more flexibility and a lot more features we can add. We can expose all the component properties. So, going forward, this is we're going to be kind of improving. All right. So we got the mapping, and we can save. And we can go back right here. So the last thing we need to do is we would like to invoke the service, okay, on page load. So for that, I'm going to click outside the frame, and I'm going to click to events, and then I'm going to use a load event and use Invoke Service. Okay, and so the service is get things. Click OK, save. Let's run this. All right, so you can see we got 2 things, and you guys can try the same thing. Right, but again, I think even just this example, it shows you this is just incredibly simple. All it took me is just a couple of minutes to connect to an actual mobile backend. And of course, if I go back to Parse, for example, if I enter another row, let's enter Charlie, for example. And if I go back to my app and I hit reload, right? Here we go. I mean, incredibly simple. So again, you guys should be able to really, see the same thing. Okay? So this is for displaying the list, all right? Now let's also add a capability where we can add new items. So we're going to go back to our builder, and first we're going to drag and drop input component. Let's change this to new item. We're going to make this a placeholder, and also let's new thing. Right? This is just a name, so again, it's easier to find this in the mapping. All right, and let's also get a button now. So drag and drop a button like this, and let's change this, add new, and let's put an icon just to make it a little bit cooler, something like this. And we can also change the button to black, so it looks like this. All right, now we can test this. It's not going to do anything yet. We can just test this to make sure to kind of. All right, so this is how it's going to look. Okay, and you can see the new item. Once they start typing, it goes away because this is kind of HTML5, prompt. All right, so this is good for the input. Now, of course, we need to define a service, which is going to do a post and add a new item. And so we're going to go to services. We're going to drag and drop a new one. Doesn't exist, so we're going to click add. And now we'll call this create thing. All right. Now the actual URL is the same, but the difference is instead of doing a get, we're going to do a post, right? And that will actually create the service. So we're going to switch here to post, and the content type is also JSON. All right. Going back to request parameters, we're going to basically, I'm going to repeat the same steps. I have to do the two header parameters, so just bear with me. So first is the application ID. All right, and now the key, make it a header, and let's get the other one. All right, and like this. All right, now, but of course we need one extra parameter is actual text value, right? And so we can easily just create a new one, another one, text, and click add, all right? And what's really, again, good is that we can, again, test this, even before putting on the screen, we can test this. So we can click test connection and type something. Click test, and we can see this is the result. Basically, the way Parse works is that I get the object ID and the time when it was created. I can click close. If I go back to Parse and I hit refresh, all right, we can see that hello again is right there. All right, so again, you can test the service easily. All right, so let's go. Let's run this one more time. And we can say something like hello 2, click test, and I'm doing this, just please wait. All right, we got it, so I can create the response structure, so we can click right here. All right, so we got the response, we got the input, and we got the service. Actually, just let me, here we go. Create thing. All right, save and then close. All right, so we got, let's rename it here. So this is create. Sorry about that. Create thing like this. All right. So we would like first, so when we take the value from the input field, we would like to map it to the service. So we're going to do input parameters mapping. So you can see the text. This is the service side, and I can see text, right? This is the value, so I just drag and drop it like this, right? This is the connection, right? So this and the keys are there from the service, all right? On the response mapping, we don't need to map anything, right? so we don't have to do anything there. So let's save, and let's go back to design. Now, of course, I would like to actually invoke the service when this button is clicked. So I'm going to events, I specify click event, and then I do invoke and create things. Okay. Now, but I also, once I create an item, the list is not going to be updated automatically, right? So I have to actually go and reload the list, basically, right? So that's what I'm going to do. But what's important is that I don't want to call the service first, do the add service, and then right away do the load item service, because we want to make sure that the add service actually finishes successfully, and only then I reload the list. Because if I call them one after another, right here, the order, there's no guarantee that the first one will finish first. So for that, what we can do is I can select the actual instance, and I go to events, and I can use a success event. So once the service successfully completes, then I would like to reload, get the new list, right? So again, that's important, the order in which these services are invoked. So I go to success event, and then basically just invoke service, and get things. All right? So we're going to click OK and save. All right? So let's test this. All right. So we can see the items. Let's type something. All right? And we can see. And you guys can actually try the same thing. Try adding new things. Now, again, we have a lot of people, doing it at the same time. So again, you might have a lot of different things from different people. So just keep that in mind. All right. So we can say first. All right. Click add. We can see that someone put some items, so it works. All right. So it's pretty cool. And of course, if we go into our parse or our data, if we reload, this is what we're going to see. All right, so it's pretty neat. All right, the last thing we want to do is we want to be able to delete items. So let's do that. So first, we're going to add a button here, right in the second column. That's why we kept it blank. All right, and we're going to say delete here, just like this. Make it a little bit bigger. Here we go. And we're going to change this to black. All right? So this is all we need for the button. What we also need is, so we know which item we're deleting, right? So we need to pass the ID of the record or the message we're trying to delete. So for that, I'm actually going to put another label inside, okay? And this is sort of going to act as a hidden field. And I'm going to actually make it invisible. And I'm going to make this object ID, all right? And when we load the list of items, we actually get that ID. So we would like to render it into the page. So I'm going to go to Get Things, and I'm going to click the mapping. And what I'm going to do is take the object ID and map it like this. All right? So the object ID, the item ID is mapped to this hidden field. All right? All right, so now let's go and create the actual service. So again, same step as before. We're going to click Add and delete thing. Now the URL is, I'm going to copy the URL, but there's a slight difference. We have to add an extra parameter, and this is the actual object ID, which I'm going to delete. So this, again, each item is an ID, and this is how you delete. For the method, we're actually going to switch it to delete, all right? And we're going to go to request parameters. So again, same steps as before. So first, getting the application. Do that. All right, make this a header. And the second one, the API key. And like this. All right. And now, as you can see here, the URL has this dynamic part. And so we just need to create a parameter just with the same name. It looks like this. All right? And again, we can test this again. We just need to know the ID. So I can go back to my browser. Let me just reload. So there are a lot of things here. Well, let's delete the one I created. Let's delete this one. All right? So I just take an ID item and go back to Tiggzi and test connection. All right? And so this is the response. So this is the valid response. Nothing is really returned to me. I can close. And let's see, it was Tiggzi. If I hit refresh, so you can see Tiggzi is gone. So we can, again, this sort of tells us that the service works. So let's save and let's close. All right, let's rename this. All right. So what we need to do is we need to somehow take this value, the ID, which is not shown on the screen, and pass it to the service. So what I need to do on the button click, I'm actually going to define an event. We'll use click, and then I'm going to take the value from the list item, the object ID, and save it into local storage. And then from local storage, I'm going to map it to the service. So we can see set local storage variable. Okay, and this is just a standard HTML5 local storage. So we're going to give it a name here, local object ID, and I'm actually going to bind it to a component, which is the object ID, that hidden field. All right. So on button click, we're going to take the value from the component and set it into local storage. All right, like this. And next, I want to invoke the service. So invoke service, which is delete thing. All right. So we're not done yet, is because we need to create the mapping. Okay, so let's go here, select the service instance, properties, and then right here. So you can see this is the service input. This is the object ID. If I scroll down, there is local storage. Okay, and I just drag and drop it, create the connection like this. All right. So again, on button click, I save the value into local storage. When I invoke the service, I read the value from local storage. So pretty straightforward. All right, save, and back here. Now, as with the add feature, we would like to reload the list, right, once we delete. So we, again, would like to call the getThings service, but only after the delete service successfully finishes. So we go to delete, select the service, go to events, and then we add use a success event, and we call invoke service getThings. All right, let's save.
So try and leave some extra time, because I think some people are having a problem seeing the when they try and use the application. So when you run it, just pause. Just
All right, of course, sure. So let's click test. All right. All right. So we get a list here, and let's try deleting. So let me just delete. Let's see. One was deleted for sure. Okay, here we go. It's possible that people are doing it, deleting on their side there.
So are people seeing this? And if you could post in the Q&A thing that you're actually able to delete things.
Yeah. But again, if multiple people trying to delete the same item, so it might not work. Again, you might click delete, but the item is not there. All right, but
okay.
Again, it should work. All right. So if I refresh, let me see what I get. All right, so there's just one item, and then again, if I delete the item, it's gone. Right. So.
Add me back.
Hello, and we can put Charlie. All right. Oh, so you can see there's a blank one because we're not checking if the value is blank or not. Can this be blank? So we can, I guess, we can delete Charlie. Anyone? So someone added another item. So again, this is just one issue where a lot of people accessing the same app at the same time. There is feature in Parse, and again, there's just no time to do that, where we can actually introduce the idea of a user. So instead of trying to kind of work on the same list at the same time, you would, for example, sign in and then log in, and then you will have, each user will have his or her own list, right? And again, you can easily do it with Parse. They have actually a built-in user class. But again, there's just no time to do that, all right? But that's basically it. So you can see, I mean, just within 20 minutes, we're able to create a real CRUD app. And what else we can do just to make it kind of a complete is that we can actually publish the app, all right? So there is you can actually, because I created a mobile web app, I can publish it, and I can specify a domain, or you can use also a custom one. So for example, we can say cool things app, all right? And webinar is a comment. So this is the subdomain, and then I'm going to click publish. And what's going to happen is it takes a few minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. Usually, you know, it's less. But let's wait. Let's go into Q&A.
No, that's a good idea.
And we'll come back to this and try it. But basically, now it has its own URL.
Well, since I'm going to go, please post any questions you have in the lower right corner. But there are some immediate questions that came up. One person has had trouble actually seeing the same results, and he was asking if being outside of the U.S. is an issue with the demo in terms of not being able to see the things refreshing. It's this person here.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, maybe what we can do is we have your info. Maybe we'll contact you, or you can contact us, and we can figure out the specifics of your setup. And another person is saying that for the last part, where you were doing the complete CRUD, he said that it wasn't working in Windows 7.5 phone. So,
I mean, I guess IE 7.5, right? I guess, or is it the mobile phone? Well, I guess it's 7. If it's Windows Phone, just send me more information, and we'll test it again on the Windows Phone.
All right. The one idea maybe is, are they? Well, we'll figure it out from talking to them.
So I see
you have to refresh manually.
Well, yeah. So to get the new app, yes, you have to refresh the browser to get the actual, because there is new JavaScript. But when you delete, no, you don't need to refresh the app, of course. But again, the deleting works. I tried it. But again, if people are creating new items at the same time and deleting items at the same time, so you might, not see exactly what you expect. But again, it works.
Okay, now let's start from the top now. One person asked about Tiggzi itself, about what kind of source control we have as part of our, do we have any kind of collaborative build system, or is there anything on the roadmap if there isn't?
There is. So yeah, so right now people are basically working against the same code base. There is a basic sort of versioning control, because there is, for example, a history. If I click here, there is a history I'm showing right now, so you can actually load different versions. And I mentioned this before, we are planning to introduce more source control, or maybe connect to some existing source control systems, as an example, like GitHub or similar.
Right, and the fact that someone asked about it is a sign that it's a need. Here's another question. Let's see. So let's see. Oh, someone had a question about when the demo, when you use the label itself, there's an arrow, which kind of things. But that's just the way the default for the text label. It doesn't mean that you actually have to click on it. See how the label text always has that right arrow?
Oh, I put this arrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there.
Just to confuse.
So no, it's actually it's a jQuery. So you can put an icon here, and you can decide its position.
Okay.
But I mean, it's a pretty important point. Is that, again, I think this comes down to what I mentioned before. Is that, so this is not our own components per se. I mean, this is not our own proprietary framework. This is jQuery mobile and HTML5. So the end result is just sort of the standard jQuery mobile HTML5 app. So again, that's important.
Well, someone has an interesting question about whether our controls that come in Tiggzi support touch, drag, gesture events.
Touch. We'll get more information. What the drag part? I'm not sure I understand.
Oh, that you know, as an event, you know, you can
click. Touch event.
Touch, drag, and these other events that are part of, or gesture.
Yes, you can do. I'll need to check exactly, but it's definitely, if it's not in this version, it's being added in one of the next releases.
And that brings up a good question too. The thing about Tiggzi is that it's completely extensible through JavaScript in a lot of different places. So
That's true.
Probably add that support.
That's true. Yes, that's true. For example, we just added Ajax navigation. In this a few days ago.
Oh, okay.
So.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, how do I save lots of data in one object to local storage in Tiggzi? Like.
I mean, I guess it would have to be done today, probably using some JavaScript. I mean, there are some JavaScript libraries that can take a JSON and they can format it into, for example, string format, and then you can save it as just a, key value. And then once you bring it back, you can put it back into JSON format. So again, obviously, some things are only possible directly doing from the GUI. And that's exactly why we have JavaScript, where you get access to local storage. So again, pretty much everything you can do with JavaScript, if it's not yet available via the builder directly.
So it's always better to have it available in the builder. But okay, here's another question. He wants more information about the general feature of our REST service connection. So that would be in the last slide where you have help.tiggzi.com, right?
Slide. Let me go back to slides.
There we go. Yeah, there, docs. It's actually it's documented in there. That's your link to our help system for Tiggzi. Let's see. What? Oh, here was a question about customizing CSS.
Yeah. So in the next release or the next one, we're actually going to make it possible for you to create CSS in the jQuery mobile role themer, and then actually bring it into this builder. So you'll be able to completely customize the CSS.
Okay. And then which version of PhoneGap are we using in this?
So this one, we just did a new release on Monday, and so this version uses PhoneGap 1.4. And in fact, well, this project doesn't have, this is a web app, so it doesn't have PhoneGap, but if you can always check by going to Project and Project Profile, and you will see another panel here, which will actually tell you which PhoneGap version you have.
Okay. Oh, and here's a question about using something else besides jQuery mobile as for the UI component.
No, right now this is only jQuery mobile.
But you could add in because you could still connect to external. No.
Well, you can load JavaScript. I mean, I guess you could load JavaScript, other JavaScript libraries. You could do that. But if the question is, well, can you put other components in here? I mean, not right now, because I mean, again, it takes more than just putting components here. They have to be shown in the builder, and then there's code generation. But again, it is possible to use any other JavaScript, which is, of course, also including UI components. And this is done the same way. There's a project profile, and there are external resources. And you can see that. You can load, if they're available on the internet, you can load them this way. Or you can also create a new JavaScript file by going to JavaScript, and then you have options. You can do a blank. You can create from a URL, or you can upload from a file as well. So.
Okay,
different ways.
Here's something that I'm bringing up that are sort of more the future webinar items. One is one person wants to know if there are any plans for us to show a user login, the whole user management feature of Parse working inside Tiggzi.
Yeah, I mean, we can, that's I guess a topic for another webinar. But I'm also planning to do a tutorial on the user management. It works pretty much the same way. It's very simple, but again, there is just not enough time to do this in one webinar. And also to point out, so the app that I just built, we actually have a step-by-step tutorial how to build this app on our help site.
And it'll be accessible from the help.tiggzi.com.
Yeah, exactly, from the help site. So you can actually build this app today. You just need to sign up for Parse, and you'll be able to build the same app.
All right, and then a question about supporting HTTPS under the security context, which is we have that security context feature. So that's just yes. Then
well, HTTPS, yeah. I mean, actually, the services that I use, the Parse services, are actually HTTPS. If I switch to, let me show you. It's HTTPS here.
Oh, okay. Here's a question about someone, I guess they're talking about exporting the app to PhoneGap. You know, you have the export option, and then that's when you can get it to work with BlackBerry and Windows mobile devices. I presume he means in the development environment that PhoneGap has.
Yeah, so we have you can export, you can do Android. It's already with PhoneGap, and you can also export to iOS source code. So let me actually show you. Let me go back. So right here, we can do Android, you can do iOS, but the other platforms, BlackBerry and Windows Phone, yes. So what you would do is you would export the web resources, and then, for example, you could manually add PhoneGap, or you can take it to PhoneGap Build, right, where they build the app for you for different platforms. So that's an option. But as I mentioned, we are planning to add Build for iOS. And we're also, as the first step, we're planning to add source exports for BlackBerry and Windows Phone. So you'll be able to do everything from here. But again, Android, for obvious reasons, is the simplest. iOS, again, we're planning to add. And again, for BlackBerry and Windows Phone, you export the web resources and then take it to PhoneGap Build.
All right, someone had a question about sharing service components between projects, and that's just something we've talked about.
Yeah, yeah. You can actually create what we call plugins, and those can actually be shared.
All right. Someone liked your data mapping and binding. Here's a question about other kind of, I guess there are other events, like how would you put a print button in the UI, or how would you put an email button?
So the email is a good question, but basically the way you get any functionality, that sort of remote functionality, is via REST services. And there is no way to send an email from JavaScript. It's just there is no such feature. But there is actually a service, a cloud service, very similar to Parse, that all it does is that they send emails. And it's called sendgrid.com.
Oh.
So again, sendgrid.com. You can sign up, and basically they give you REST services, and then you can send email through them. So again, that's sort of one of the really cool and unique features, is that as long as there's anything exposed as REST, you can use it. You can use it in the app.
Okay, we only have a few minutes left before our cutoff time. Here's a person with some questions about any future plans for a debugging option, or should people just rely on Firebug?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what we do all the time. Once the app is running, use Firebug or the Chrome development tools. Those are excellent tools. We use them all the time, and it's the best way to debug the app.
All right, and then for now, we're just focused on REST. There are no plans to support SOAP. That's the
REST. Yeah, we can easily support SOAP. We didn't see any demand, and in fact, especially on the mobile side, pretty much everything is JSON based. So REST based. So SOAP, again, we just don't see a lot of demand happening right now.
Okay, just two more questions then. One question is about, this is a follow-through on the email button question. Is the person suggesting using a PhoneGap plugin to send an email from the device?
Well, I guess probably this question here is where you can invoke the native email program.
Oh,
so that's a little bit different. Yeah. So I'm not sure there is such plugin. If it's available, yeah, you can definitely use it. What you can also do is that, again, if you don't want to use an actual REST service and have someone else send the email for you, there is JavaScript, I guess, protocol or API where you can actually you can launch via a URL. It's like a mail to type link. So that's another option that could be tried.
All right, and then I guess we have to shut down for now. Is there any other unanswered questions? Be sure and you can always email. Here, Max, bring up the slide. With the, there. So at the very bottom, you can see Max's email address. So if there are things or there's just the general support, we have a lot of resources that you can use to learn more about Tiggzi. So I'm sorry we couldn't get to every question, but I really appreciate everyone taking the time to come to this webinar. We really liked putting it on, and we'll be doing some future ones as we hear more from people about what they're interested in talking about. And just one final note, the webinar, you'll receive an email, anyone who registered for this webinar, with information about how to access the art.
Oh, I guess there's one last question, is that if we could try the URL to which we deployed the app.
Okay,
That's a good thing.
Okay, so let's move the clock back.
Yeah, so let's try that. So this is going to be, I'm deleting this.
All right. Oh, you do subdomain then.
And then Cool Things app, right?
Yeah.
Looks like it's working. There we go. Yeah, so thank you for reminding us. But yeah, so this is now
do something.
A real app, right? So the test link, I mean, it's the same thing, but now this has its own domain, and you can also, of course, do a custom domain, and host this app and send it to everyone.
That's great. Thanks to you for reminding us about that. So so now I am going to shut everything down and thank everyone for attending.